Thank you. Awesome, thanks, Andrew. How's everybody doing? Yeah? Okay, cool. Oh, it's bright up here, guys. So my name is Hana Abaza. I'm VP Marketing at Uberflip. And before I actually get into the specific piece of content we created, how it performed, what we did, I want to take a step back to roughly maybe 2010 when content was crowned king. And when content took its throne, our mantra as marketers became to publish all of the time. Quantity, 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 keep that editorial calendar full, churn out as much content as humanly possible. That's really what we were all doing. And afterwards we realized, hey, this is not sustainable. You guys know this, right? People consuming our content said, no, we don't really like this very much. And also Google said, no, we don't really like this very much either. So we started talking about the importance of quality over quantity. It wasn't just about churning out content as quickly as possible. It had to be good stuff. And really smart people, like Ann Handley, started talking about the importance of creating ridiculously good content. All right, cool, so we've got that. We need a certain amount of quantity, consistency is important, but it's gotta be really high quality content. I don't think I need to convince you guys of that. You guys are smart marketers, you're here for a reason. You know you need good content. But here's the tricky part. Only recently have we started talking about how do we leverage content to accomplish business objectives? How do we leverage content to get results? How do we even know this content thing is working? And unfortunately, most content marketers can't actually tell me if it's working. They can say, hey, I think it's working. It's maybe working. I see visits. I see stuff happening, but I don't really know for sure. And I don't really know how to get more bang for my buck. So I'm going to let you guys in on a dirty little secret. If you were actually in the case study I did yesterday, you probably already know what this dirty little secret is. But the dirty little secret is that great content isn't enough. High quality content isn't enough anymore. What you need is a remarkable content experience. And when we're talking about a content experience, we're talking about how people are going to consume the content that you want them to consume. We're talking about optimizing the experience to accomplish your goals, whether that's engagement or lead generation or something else. Now, I love pina coladas, which is why I'm really excited. I feel like I'm going to get a big, good pina colada here later tonight. But would I rather be sipping my pina colada in my kitchen, or would I rather be sipping my pina colada on a beach in Hawaii, or poolside in Scottsdale, as the case may be? No contest, right, guys? It might be exactly the same pina colada. It might taste exactly the same, but it's the experience that actually makes a difference. Now, your content works the same way. It might be exactly the same content, but the experience is what's going to make the difference in terms of driving results. So how do most of us think about content marketing? Most of us think about content marketing in a three-phase cycle, right? We create the content, we distribute the content, we gather insights, and then we rinse and repeat. We create more, better, different content based on the insights that we get. So we like to think of content a little bit differently at Uberflip, and we'll get into how we use this process to actually execute, but what we like to do is we like to think about optimizing the content experience. So when we create that piece of content, that's only the first stage. Then we think about, okay, what's the experience going to be when people actually go to consume this piece of content? What's the experience going to be when they actually go to discover other content? And this part is often overlooked. People go right to distribution and they don't optimize that experience, meaning their distribution dollars are often spent without any kind of discretion for efficiency. So how do we start to talk about that? So this is the asset that I'm going to talk about today. Data-driven content marketing, really riveting stuff. Unless you're a super marketing geek, and I feel like there's a lot of those in the room today, no offense. You're probably not going to be reading this by the pool. But if you are interested in reading this, you're probably somebody that we want to talk to at Uberflip. So what were our goals with this particular ebook? Well, our goal was lead generation, but not just lead generation. Our goal was quality, not quantity. MQLs, if you will. It wasn't about packing as many leads as possible into the funnel. It was about packing the right leads into the funnel. So before I tell you what we did, let's take a look at actually what usually happens when a piece of content is created. A bunch of people get into a room, a bunch of content marketers, maybe the content team, and they whiteboard a whole bunch of ideas. Here's what we think is going to appeal to personas A, B, C. Then we're going to create the content, we're going to publish the content, we're going to tell everybody, we're going to email people, we're going to put it on all of our social media accounts. And for the first little while after that ebook or white paper or other type of asset is released, it does really well because you're promoting it as much as possible. And then you look 6 months later, and the results eventually kind of go meh. Why is that? Well, it's because usually, beyond that initial push for promotion, what happens is that that ebook isn't optimized, the experience isn't optimized, and it's not packaged in a much bigger experience that actually makes it discoverable for people down the road so it can continue to work for you and continue to generate leads. So this is where most premium assets end up, in a resource center, right? And most resource centers we go to have a category of, like a menu item that'll say, here's my blog. Here are all the white papers. Here are all the ebooks. Here are all the webinars. Never in my life have I gone to a resource center and said, I really want to read a white paper. I don't care what it's about. I just really want to read a white paper. Has anybody done that? Nobody's done that. Nobody has ever said that. And what people really want is they want to learn about different topics that are relevant to them. So why are we organizing things by ebook, white paper, webinar? Doesn't make sense. But that's how most resource centers happen. And then on top of that, you upload your ebook or your white paper or your webinar to your resource center, and then what happens after a couple of weeks or a couple of months? Eventually it gets buried, right? Eventually it is never going to be seen again by anybody ever. So at Uberflip, we think of most resource centers as a place where content goes to die, unfortunately. So how do we present this? And preventing this is actually really easy. It's about optimizing that experience, optimizing that resource center or content hub, that's what we call it, or content library, whatever you want to call it. So let's take a look at what we do. So when we create an asset like this, a premium asset, we don't just walk into a room and whiteboard it. We do a little bit of that. We love our whiteboards. But first, we actually ask people what they want. We're very communicative with our customers around the type of content they want to receive. Then we might actually even prototype it. This particular ebook actually started as a blog post and then spun off and expanded from there when we saw how well the blog post did. Content gets created, content gets published. We look at the actual experience at that stage. All right, we've published the content. What can we do to optimize the experience to meet our goal, which in this case is lead generation? And I'll show you how we did that. And then we look at the distribution piece in a very targeted way. So the reality is what we want to make sure we do is we get more bang for our buck when it comes to content marketing. Does anybody know where this guy's from? Yeah? Who can tell me where he's from? Thank you, Breaking Bad, awesome. I presented this slide somewhere else, and nobody in the audience knew, and there was a good 50 people there. I was really heartbroken. So I'm proud that you guys do. Now, how do you actually start to optimize that content? How do you get more bang for your buck? So this is the first stage. So number one, this is the individual asset itself. This is the actual ebook. Now, I'm sure most of you expected a landing page there. We don't actually really use landing pages much anymore. We use them in certain circumstances, and we've actually gated this ebook with what we call a form overlay. And I mean, we use Uberflip to do this. We use Uberflip at Uberflip, shocker. But this is how we've done it. And the reason we do this is because we know that for us, this converts really well. And for our customers, this converts well. We've had customers test this versus a regular landing page, and this has seen over a 250% increase in conversion. So number one, optimize the actual asset itself for your goals. Number two, that asset needs to live in an experience that is tailored to your audience. So instead of putting it in a stream of content or a block of content or a resource center that has all white papers, I'm going to put it under something around content marketing or data-driven content marketing. Or in this case, I actually put it in a very targeted stream of content towards Marketo users. Why? Because Uberflip integrates with Marketo. We write a lot of content around it, and we know that that type of data-driven content is compelling for that user. So we've surrounded it with additional content that's highly relevant for that person. The calls to action are also highly relevant for that person, and the overall experience is optimized for their goal. So optimize the content itself and optimize the overall experience, because if people come into your content hub, your resource center, whatever it may be, through another piece of content, you want that ebook to be discoverable. Now, that we've looked at sort of the experience itself, we look at distribution. Targeted email, I think everybody here does that. Social shares, I think everybody here does that. Leveraging advocates, I don't think everybody here does that. That's something you should be doing on a regular basis. Leverage your advocates to promote your best content. And very targeted syndicated content. And this is something that we actually do quite a bit. And what this lets us do is this lets us target very specific people with very specific offers. Are you going to get huge volume with this? Probably not. Are you going to get excellent quality leads with this? Yes, you are. Because you can, generally speaking, depending on the channels you're using, really target the specific parameters around the person that you're really wanting to come through that funnel. So, results. 47% conversion rate on that initial page, that's form fills. 1,500 net new leads, and about 500K in pipeline. That number is actually higher now. I don't have the most recent metrics. But all of that from an ebook that started from a blog post that really didn't take any kind of extra time and effort outside of what our content team was already working for. So bottom line, it comes down to thinking of your content holistically. Don't just think of the individual asset. Don't just think of creating. Don't just think of a single landing page. Think of the entire experience. Make sure your content is discoverable, and make sure it continues to give. It continues to get you more bang for your buck. Any questions, guys? Oh, yeah.
What distribution did you do outside of just having published it? Were there paid ads and social ads? I'm just curious what your distribution strategy is.
Yeah, so syndicated content actually was a big part of it. So a lot of that's paid. And we'll syndicate content through a variety of different channels. So we use like Integrate, we use Madison Logic, we use a few different ones for different things. But that'll be paid. And generally speaking, the CPL is fairly good for those. It goes up every time you get more targeted, obviously. But in terms of ROI, it's no contest, right? Like it's still a very low CPL compared to the pipeline that we're able to drive from it. Cool. Any other questions, guys? I can't really see. It's too bright. Hi.
Where you said present it in the relevant experience,
Yeah.
having your, obviously, loving your own campaign using Uberflip to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Not an Uberflip user.
Yep. If you're not an Uberflip user, you should have a developer on your marketing team. So I mean, listen, there's a problem in marketing in that there's often an IT bottleneck, and in order to be able to do things like this, marketers need to rely on their developers to customize whatever CMS you're using. So if you're using probably WordPress, okay, then, I mean, you could work with your development team in order to do that. The other option is if you're working with an agency, they can potentially do that for you. The reality is you're either going to use a platform like Uberflip or like something else to be able to manage it yourself, or you're going to rely on a developer. So if you have a dev on your team, that's amazing. Get them to start to think about how to do it. Cool. Any other questions?
In the back here.
Are you using tags to group content, similar content?
Yeah, there's a few ways we can do that. So the way we do it is we've got sort of our content hub, but then we also have the ability to create sort of what we call custom streams of content. And those can be essentially created two ways. So number one, manually. So if I'm me, the control freak that I am, want to go in and pick specifically which pieces of content go into that custom stream, I can do that. That works really well for scenarios around sales enablement or account-based marketing. So let's say it's a custom stream for a specific account. I can get really laser targeted there. The other way we do it is through something called smart filters, which is essentially either through tags or keywords, and then that content gets automatically added.
All right, great, thank you.
Thank you.